Hezekiah, what's happening, man? What's going on, sir? It's been a while.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
What you been up to?
Everything. Just doing what I do.
So, in terms of, we say everything. So, what are you doing now that people will be surprised or shocked by? What you got going on? Is there something interesting happening overseas or something that people go,
Well,
what you doing?
we get ready to go to Africa. We're doing a live recording in Cape Town, South Africa.
Really?
So I'm excited.
First time?
First time doing the recording. It's not my first time going.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Why?
Well, we've been going for the last 10 years. We set a church up over there, and so we've been going for the last 10, 12 years. And so I just think that, gospel music over in South Africa, they love the U.S. gospel,
Mm-hmm.
and they love the sound. I love the sound from South Africa. So we kind of infusing it together, putting it South Africa.
Explain to the people who don't know, the praise and worship in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana. We think we do praise and worship. Bruh, I was at a church in Ghana in 2008.
Yes.
That was crazy. They on a whole different level.
Whole nother,
They do praise and worship.
whole nother level. Well, I think the difference is, of course, it's authentic. Not that our worship is not authentic, but I think, because we basically sort of have everything at our feet. When I first went to South Africa, I met a group of people who did not have medical coverage, who did not have the means to even go to the doctor. And all they had was worship. And so they came to church worshiping, but they were worshiping because they needed something from God. And they wanted God to heal them because they didn't have the means to go to doctors. So I think sometimes when worship really truly comes from the heart, and it's not about the look, it's not about the fashion, it's not about the, who's singing. It's just about, it comes purely from the heart, because really what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And I found from being there, like they come there, worshiping from the heart. There was a young man who, when we did the offering, he didn't have any kind of means of money to give. He ripped 2 buttons off his jacket and gave 2 buttons. And that was his offering.
I also think what has actually hurt us is that when you look at what took place during slavery, we were not allowed to express ourselves.
Yes.
And I think that still sort of hinders us in terms of no, shouldn't do that, or you're carrying on too much.
Yes.
As opposed to when I went to services there, we talk about allowing the Holy Spirit to move.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't tripping on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, like I've seen some preachers. Hey, it's time for me to preach.
Time for you to preach.
As opposed to allowing the service. I think probably one of the greatest things I ever saw. Kirby John Caldwell was not there that Sunday. It was one of their other pastors. It was Windsor Village United Methodist Church. And the praise and worship was so powerful that the preacher literally chose not to give a sermon.
Wow.
The entire 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Was praise and worship. And now he talked in between, but it wasn't like stop praise and worship, time for the sermon time.
Right.
He allowed
The worship,
the Holy Spirit to move. And I just personally believe that that I've seen a lot of preachers quench or just stop the Holy Spirit from moving and not let that moment, not be in the moment and say, you know what, my sermon can wait because something else is happening.
Exactly. And I think when we get to that point, I think that's when we will see a major display as we've seen in Africa. I think we'll see an authentic group of people coming and letting God have his way without quenching it and saying, okay, it should be in order. because I grew up in a church where there was an order.
Right.
And if you didn't follow the order, then you was out of order. But again, I think, we have to get back to that place where it's just pure worship, and whatever God says, then that's what we do.
So you're in a unique position because you're bishop, but then you also got the music piece. And if there are two forces that are constantly battling in a church, there's that preacher
And the musician.
and the musician.
And the music, yes.
Wonder. Because here's the reality. I don't care how great a preacher you are. You need that music. I mean, you can be the greatest preacher in the world, but you need that music.
I think, again, trying to get both sides to understand that. The minstrel need the preacher, and the preacher need the minstrel. And I really believe that that's where I come in at, to kind of help both sides come together. And as well as I know, when both sides lock,
Oh my God.
it's a major experience.
Oh, V. Michael McKay.
Oh yeah.
When he was, so my wife was the first female staff pastor at Brook Hollow Baptist Church Without Walls. She was
Wow.
education ministry.
Okay.
And so when they were on Bingo, the original location, so she had these tapes, and V. Michael was so in sync with Pastor Ralph Douglas West. V. Michael would be literally writing songs as he was playing, and Pastor West would say the lyric. Pastor West, who could also sing, would say it as well, and it was sort of just like this, just back and forth, and it was just perfect. And you're right, when those two forces collide,
That's right.
good,
That's right.
oh, it's something powerful. But when they collide for bad,
It can be a disaster. It will be a disaster. And the worship will go down, the sermon will go down, the music will go down. But when they come together as one force, and when they collide, like you said, I think that it's powerful. And of course, because the enemy knows that, he will always keep friction between the minstrel and the preacher.
talk about this shift that we have seen take place during COVID. And I've said this many times. COVID was awful. It was miserable. It was hard to deal with. But if there was a silver lining during COVID, it forced a lot of Black churches to have to change.
Yes.
Many of them, they hated live streaming. They didn't want cameras, nothing. I had more preachers calling me Roland, you've been doing this, trying to figure out what cameras to buy, what switchers to buy. And many of them realized that they were benefiting, that there were people who were visiting their church who weren't even in their states, who were even out of the country. And so COVID forced a lot of Black churches to have to catch up, as opposed to what we call that 15-year gap between Black churches and everybody else.
I agree. I agree. We talk about this all the time. Even myself, it helped me to catch up. And although I'm in the music, side of things as well, I've always in my head, my job was to preach to the community where my church is and to get the community to be involved in the church. And again, my mindset was there for years, but COVID helped me to understand that there will be people that can't get to where my church is, get to the community in which the church is located. And, I've never even considered having members from other cities, from other countries.
And Tylers.
Never even considered that until COVID hit. So I think that COVID was an eye-opener to all of us, especially the Black church. We needed to advance, and we needed to understand that there will be people that will be attracted to us outside of our city and would want to be a part. And so we had to expand what we were doing.
I think it's also because I think so many preachers were taught, fill the seats.
Yes.
I had this conversation with a lot of HBCU presidents, and a lot of HBCU alumni were saying, hey, we need to get people back to campus. And I remember I was talking to South Carolina State alumni. I said, no, you don't.
Right.
many HBCUs have infrastructure issues. They don't have the dormitory capacity. I said, there are people who want to go to your school. They can't travel to South Carolina.
That's right.
I said, how many alumni chapters y'all have? They said like 39. I said, you could be creating your communal experience in your cities, but they still go to your school. And the president was like, brother, thank you for saying that, because they were so fixated on buildings when he was saying, no, we can actually grow the university,
right,
and folk not even step foot on the campus. And I think that's when you're so trained to, I got to see people, I got to see them sitting in the pews without realizing that they're out there and they're giving, they're tithing, they're involving. It's reaching them in a totally different way.
It blew my mind when I looked at the numbers that I have online as opposed to what's actually in the church. And it's like, you have double or triple the numbers online than you do in church.
Right.
And so it's like,
and if your mission is to spread the gospel,
it's supposed to be our mission, right? Yeah. I think, sometimes God have to really push us in deep water. Sometimes we can get stuck where we are. And sometimes God's like, I need to move the church along. So, I'm going to have to do something to move you along. And I really believe that that's what COVID did for us.
Speaking of moving along, when you look at this tour, the 17th annual McDonald's tour, and then when you look at the roster of artists and you look at new sounds, different sounds, not traditional sounds, what does that say to you about the next phase or the next decade or 2 decades of gospel music?
I believe that it's moving in the right direction, really. As I look at all of the artists that's on, I think each of us bring a different element. And I think that the message of gospel needs to get out, that it's broader than what most people think. We have all different types of music as it, relates to gospel music. And I think that this is what this tour is going to bring to the table. Like, this is what gospel really is. You have your traditional, your contempt, you have, your urban contempt.
Well, a couple of artists were talking about Brie Babineau. She said, "I'm neo soul."
Right,
and you don't hear people using that phrase
exactly
with gospel. Her deal was, but this is what I listened to growing up. And
exactly,
this is what informed my musical taste.
Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. And I think that if we don't bring it to the table, people won't see that. People won't understand. Most times when you think of gospel music, on the secular mindset, it's always back in the day in the 60s or, the 50s. But again, I think that we are bringing some to the table that have not been done. And so we're moving forward just to see, the multi-gospel artists that's on the tour now. It really puts a smile on my face. And I'm thinking about the contemporaries and the urban contempt. And, back in the day, I was considered contempt, but now I'm considered tradition. Right. And it was like, but it's like,
right. Hey, so you go from being edgy, all of a sudden, old school.
Right.
Put it in the A-flat. Let me hear the A-flat, please. Here we go. Won't he make you?
I've asked many secular artists this. I've asked comedians this. Different cities bring different energy. And I'm not going to ask you about the 6 cities, but of all the places you go in the United States, is there a particular city that they bring it when you perform? Is there one that just, lot of great folk, but when you hit that city, I got to bring some fire because they are ready to praise God?
I got to say Chicago.
Really?
I really have to just say Chicago. When you come, because I'm a quiet guy. And so when you come to Chicago, you got to bring it. You got to bring it because Chicago is a quiet town. Like, you can't mention quiet and not mention Chicago. So when you come to Chicago, like when we come to Chicago, we be on our A game because they come in because they want to hear that quiet sound. They want the energy, and they want the energy that they feel and they see every single Sunday. And so when we come, we bring it and we try to bring it a notch higher.
Right.
Yeah.
So have there been times when they were like, "But," and you either look at that crowd like, "Hey, I'm really John. We gonna have to switch that order because we gonna have to play something else because they ain't feeling it."
Yes, that has happened. That has happened on several occasions. But then you know what? You have to know where you're going.
Right.
And then you have to know what songs to pull out, And so
do you adjust that depending upon the city and where? Really?
Okay, so now this is what I do. I don't ever stay in the dressing room. Some artists stay in the dressing room until it's time for them to sing or to perform. What I like to do, I like to go inside of the crowd while I'm behind the stage, and I'm feeling the room.
Yep.
And I'm feeling what the crowd wants. Because a lot of times it's almost like preaching, pastoring. Sometimes I prepare a sermon, but then I have to switch it when I sense the room that the room needs something else.
That's how I give speeches. Like literally, I don't write speeches.
Wow.
I wrote one speech, never read from it, but literally, I don't write the title. I don't have any notes, but that's exactly what happens.
You have to read the room.
I sit in a
sense the people,
and the room presents to me.
Right.
Told the sermon, and I've given speeches, and the host would say, "How did you know we were dealing with that problem?" I'm like, "I didn't know. He knew. I didn't know." But absolutely, and you feel it. I remember I spoke. It was the New York Black and Puerto Rican Caucus in Albany. Doc, and I'm sitting there, and they coming up to me. They're like, "Miss Whitney, anything?" No. They were like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Fine," but it was like I felt it, and I was like, I need to get to that mic. It was, and I'm talking about, I was like, I didn't want to talk to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't eat anything. And I was like, but when I get to them, I got something to say to these people. And man, went up there. And so the next year, Bakari Sellers spoke. He called me. He was like, "Say, bro, what did you talk about last year?" He's like, "Cause I was speaking this year."
Right.
They still talking about what you talked about. I said, "Well, that's part of my job. I want to make it hard on that next person speaking."
That's what you do. That's exactly what you do. And I think the key to my success is discerning the room, discerning what the people want, and then knowing what to do when you get on stage. And a lot of times we kind of rehearse our set, but sometimes the set, the atmosphere or the room, all the people is not calling for what you set out to put. So,
and I think the worst thing in the world, if you are, and again, whether you're a speaker, whether you are a musician, whether you're a singer, is or even a DJ. Like I hate when DJs do. That's true. And they trying to DJ, they got a blast to play the wrong song.
They play the wrong song, right?
We read it. What you doing,
right?
And you have to be willing to read that room and make that switch. And a lot of people don't like that. They're like, no, I'm gonna do it this way. And it's like, well, and the artist's gonna let you know we ain't feeling what you give it out.
It's true. So true. And if you don't read the room and if you don't discern the room, you can really fall on your face. And, but I think it's important to read the room and to kind of know the atmosphere.
Right.
And then you can kind of put the songs out. And I think, if most people would do that, I think we have better concerts.
You've done stuff written for other performances with other people. Who would you say, it's not putting you on the spot, but it sort of is, but it was just unbelievably magic when y'all got together either to write it or produce it or even do it live? That out of all the different people, it was just, even today, you go, wow, that was crazy.
I wrote a song back in the 80s called I'll Make It. And I've always wanted to do that song with John P. Key. And we finally did it.
Really?
And it's like every time I hear it, And every time we get together and we do it on stage, it's just like, this is it.
Wow.
So,
What about it?
I think actually when I wrote the song and after the song came out and after I got accustomed to hearing John's voice, in my head, I was like, this is really a song for him, you know. And at the time I wrote the song, I didn't even know who he was, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't know John at the time. But then, you know, after I heard his voice, I was like, that voice needed to be on that song. And so I always wanted to, wanted to sing with them. And so after a few years, we re-recorded it and I called him. I said, John, I want you to do I'll Make It With Me. He said, what? He said, okay, cool, we gonna do it. And we did it. And it's like, even now when I play it, listen to it, I'll be like, this is it. And then if we ever together, we did it a few years ago in Richmond together, it was like the crowd went crazy. Yeah. So I would have to say John Key.
I think there's some, what always amazes me is when, and I know this is hard for being an artist, that you're still putting new music out, you still want to express creativity and still want to stretch, but there are just some songs that they hit folk in a certain way that they're like, look, you can go and sing the rest of that stuff if you want to, but I need to hear this. And when you were talking about that, and I was on Instagram Live and I was just killing Show Up. And Johnny, because I never met him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he hits me, he said, are you serious? I was like, John, you don't understand. I said, bruh, I said, you can put out all the other stuff I said, but that song, and you're right, that choir, and I said, the repetition, hit, it's a whole different thing. And we would since become friends. When he did with the song during COVID, it was the Go-Go infused song. He sent it to me beforehand, and I was just like, just killing it. But it's just some songs that look.
Jan has that sound. He has that sound and he has that voice. It's gonna capture you, and it's gonna ring in your head. It's gonna ring in your heart. And you know, he just write those songs that you just gonna keep on doing this. Mm-hmm. Just gonna keep on playing it.
When you think back to just all the different songs that you've done, and it's always interesting when I ask this question, because most artists will say something that most people do not agree with.
Mm-hmm.
What is is it a song or an album that you're like, that's it for me, that you've done?
I would have to say my Live in Toronto album. That's that live project in Toronto still rings in my heart and my mind. The songs like Clean Inside, that song still, everyone, after 30 years, we're coming up on 30 years of doing that live album. And that song still is a favorite of everybody. So I would have to say that. Also, I also have to say the live at Radio City Music Hall. When we did that, we did the song I Need You to Survive.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that song basically for 9/11.
Mm.
And so that's another song that really, really, I have to say that's one of the songs that I kind of go back to.
Why is live so much more different with gospel than any other art form?
Well, I think it captures the essence of who we are. You know, sometimes in the studio, when you do studio records, you can't really get that feel.
Bishop Ronald Brown has that song where he goes,
I don't want the studio sound. I want a church sound. Exactly. So that's really what that's all about. It's getting that because, you know, when you're in the studio, you kind of just become professional. And when you're in church, you just kind of relax and you just do it.
Right.
And I think that's really what most times I want people to feel that.
So McDonald's is doing this again for 17 years, in 6 cities. What do you want someone who's coming to one of these concerts? What do you want them to feel when they get back in that car or get on that bus or that train and go home?
I want them to be amazed at the variety of gospel music. I want them to walk away feeling like I can do it, I can make it, and I am a lover of gospel music. That's really what I want. I think sometimes when we go to concerts, we leave, we're energized and, we are loving what we heard, but we really don't, leave a major impact. It's like the next day is over.
Right.
I want this to be a long-lasting experience that every time they see anything related to McDonald's, they'll think about the gospel concert and be like, that's what I want to do. Because that's what happened to me, Back in the day, I was back in New York. We started out, as, applying to be a part of the McDonald's Gospel Fest contest.
Yeah.
And I started loving it from that point. McDonald's was very instrumental in pushing me to say, hey, be a gospel artist. And so here I am, I fell in love with it from watching it, from seeing it, and then wanted to be, a part of it. Here it is, years later, I'm here. So I think that that's what, I would really want people to grab a hold of that. Like, McDonald's put me down with gospel music. Yeah. Because one thing that happens to these cities, and from the past shows that I've done with them, people from all over come. And some of them come and don't know what to expect. And when they leave, they be like, wow, this is what gospel music is? We're like, yes, we've been trying to tell you this all along.
And now you know.
And now you know.
Bishop, always good to see you, my brother.
It's always good to talk to you, man.
Yes, sir.
You're doing real good. I'm proud of you, bro.
I appreciate it.